So we are live, just waiting for Zoom to catch up. Here we are. Okay, so welcome everybody to Flowing with the Spiritual Cafe here every Wednesday at 4 p.m. UK time, 11 a.m. in, is it Pacific?
Fernandina Beach, Florida, East Coast.
East Coast, and wherever it is, anywhere else in the world. Everybody.
8 a.m. Pacific.
8 a.m. Pacific, early morning Pacific. So welcome. It's time to take a pause and love ourselves and listen into some inspirational conversations here. And this week I'm really excited. My cells are just buzzing because we have two beautiful guests invited by my lovely co-host Arnie Christie, and they're going to talk about the 7 sacred seals and what is currently happening within the world and the future Earth. I can't remember the exact theme, however, that's more or less what it is. And I have studied the 7 sacred seals, as has Arnie, on my own. And here's the book from Richard Rudd, whereas Kim and Hank actually run workshops and are experienced facilitators in this area. I want to talk about them more in a moment, and then I'll hand the mic over to them and we can sit back and absorb. But right now, I just want to introduce my co-host, Arnie Christie. And Arnie Christie, who is my friend, she's a writer, a public speaker, a consciousness educator, which means she's an agent of change, a change agent, and a teacher of transformation.
Alert from calendar, FWTSC.
She's also deeply diving in the gene keys, and she has many gifts and modalities that she brings to her wonderful shall I say, well, transformational gifts. I'm a Kusi angel. I'm an angel minister. I also dive deeply in the gene keys, 7 sacred seals, and I channel I channel the rainbows. So I work with the rainbow angels, rainbow vibration. And so, this is such an exciting and juicy topic for me. So what I thought I would do is, for our invocation or prayer, I thought I would read something to honor this talk today from the 7 Sacred Seals, which is Portals to Grace by Richard Rudd. And in it, we have the, here we are. We have the invocation with the blessings of the 5 elements. And what I'm going to do is, as I read each blessing, I'm going to take 3 breaths in between. Okay. Angel of Earth, please purify my physical body. Angel of Water, please purify my astral body. Angel of Air, please purify my mental body. Angel of fire, please sanctify my spirit. Angel of ether, please gather the quintessence. Let it be so. When you're ready, come back to the room, be present, give yourself a hug. And now I'm grounded. So I am delighted to introduce our beautiful guests and just say thank you for jumping in here and joining us and sharing your gifts and your light and your inspiration. I'd like to introduce Kim, the Queen of Hearts here. Kim Queen has been expressing her soul and heart through her paintings for most of her life. She resides in Central Oregon in the high desert filled with the beauty of mountains, trees, and diverse wildlife. She carries a passion for listening to, learning from, and healing and protecting all things wild and natural. Her art is an invocation from Gaia and flows through her from sacred source, touching the hearts and souls of those she is reaching out to. She says, "For me, painting is a form of meditation. I find great fulfillment in expressing my spirit through the form, color, and texture of my art." Kim is an acrylic artist whose work has been exhibited and sold in galleries throughout Central Oregon for many years. More recently, she has retired from the traditional art scene and now focuses her energy and talents on creating invocations and sacred objects to help people deepen their connection to self, their path, and source. Her work is characterized by deep, rich, earthy tones, ranging from mossy greens to bold and dramatic colors that capture the energy and intention of each painting. Kim is also incorporating powerful ancient symbology into her work to further deepen the power and sacred nature of her invocations and creations. Each creation evokes healing, awakening, and grace as an expression of beauty and essence. Kim has been a lifelong walker of a spiritual path that has deepened and broadened over time. She is devoted to her own journey of awakening and assisting others on the walk home. She is a member of Pure Heart Council and anchors in the West, the element of water, and realm of soul. She carries the medicine of the ancient grandmother Moktan, one of the four pillars of the universe. Kim walks her path of service humbly and with joy. And I'll put her contact information on the post when we post the replay tomorrow. And I just want to say before I move on that what's jumped out at me is you saying, it all jumped out at me, but this in particular is protecting things wild and natural. That's me. I'm wild and natural. So thank you for that. And also, I'm really excited to hear about the ancient grandmother Moktan, if we've got time for that too. So thank you and welcome. And now I'll move on to Hank Queen. Wow, Hank Queen was trained and worked as an aeronautical astronautics engineer. He has had a remarkable journey as a business leader, consultant, coach, and healer. This journey has included 3 near-death experiences, 1 drowning and 2 cardiac arrests that brought him many gifts and insights into how we are all one. Hank is a retired executive from Boeing with 40 years of leadership, teaching, healing, and consulting experience. He led an organization of over 40,000 people, and together they achieved an amazing turnaround by connecting hearts and minds while bringing management and union leaders together around a common purpose. He discovered a unique approach to healing trauma by using the heart to heal his own congestive heart failure. Wow. After leaving Boeing 15 years ago, Hank now focuses on teaching, consulting, and healing awakening others individually and in collectives. He acts as a teacher, a guide, and helper, assisting each person to find their own unique healing, integration, and awakening. He has a private practice in Redmond and teaches workshops to healers, life coaches, and collectives as part of a collective organisation called Blue Heron Rising. Hank is also a member of a small collective of 5 people, himself and 4 powerful and divine feminine women, called Pure Heart Council. This council formed more than 3 years ago and is in total devotion and service to the healing and awakening of humanity and Gaia. They have received many downloads about the structure and purpose of the universe, and particularly about the current time of choosing. The current time of choosing the 7 sacred seals and the beginning of the great change. They now are in early stages of sharing these downloads, along with how to apply and embody them to help others to navigate and awaken as this historic event opens for all. And again, I will post Hank's contact details, web address in the replay. And thank you for that. So the time of choosing the 7 sacred seals and the beginning of the great change is the theme for today. And Hank, thank you for jumping in with your beautiful partner, Kim. And so I am going to absorb and relax and enjoy all of this. And I'm going to hand you the microphone for you to jump in and share.
Thank you. Thank you. So Kim has asked me to speak first, which is what she usually does. She super glues a wooden handle to my back and pushes me to the front. So, so I'm going to start.
I'm the shy one.
But I'm not going to let her get away with sitting here. So Kim and I met in 2012 and fell in love. I was pretty new to a spiritual path. I could say mine really started in 2008. So I'm a newbie. And Kim's been on a path for a long time, but we helped each other to grow, and we connected, and we began to find ways to come together to support people in their spiritual work and ourselves in our work. We live in a house right now, which is a really important thing. For more than 5 years, we lived in a 400 square foot yurt, which is a very small space to live in for 2 people and 2 dogs and a cat. So we like living here. We have done various things over the years to invite people, to gather people, always in the spirit of collectivism, which is no one actually leads. People can facilitate different parts of it, but it's a part of the leadership work I teach is how to operate and prosper in collectives. So in late last year, Kim got this idea to get something special for my birthday, because it was a big one. I turned 70 last November. And so she wanted to get me a hand-carved stone dragon, custom carved, and she didn't have the money to do that. So she got this request to create a painting, a commission. She does commissioned art at times. And the art she was asked to do is behind us. And that art and that call for that commission, she's going to tell you a little bit about the short story of it, is what has put us very strongly on quite a different path than we were on for the first 5 or 6 years we were together.
So I'll tell a little story about how this painting came to be, because it's very interesting. Like Hank said, I was trying to come up with the money for this dragon that I wanted to give him, and I didn't think I could afford it. And 2 days later, I got a call out of the blue from this woman that she wanted to meet with me, and her guides told her to contact me, and that I was to create something special for her. So I went to her home and met with her, and long story short, she commissioned me to do this painting. And one of the things that she said in our interview was, she said, my guides are telling me that this painting is meant to heal many. And she was building a healing center, and that's where this painting was meant to hang. And so that was my main focus when I started working on this painting, and I started studying ancient healing symbols. She had a lot of things that she specifically wanted in this painting. She wanted a lot of texture. She wanted the gold paint, the red paint, the gold leaf. She wanted the enzo, which is the circular symbol, which is a Japanese symbol. And I didn't know what that was. And I told her, I don't know what that is. And she said, well, to me, it's a culmination of all your art in one stroke. No pressure. And when I looked up what it really was, what the Japanese, you've probably seen the Japanese do this stroke, but what they say is you can't draw it first. You can't fix it once it's done, because imperfection is perfection, they believe. So if my circle came out to be like an oval, then that's just what it was going to be. So anyway, she had these things that she wanted, but the main thing that stuck out in my mind was that this painting was meant to heal many. So one day I'd been studying Gene Keys for a few years, and the 7 sacred seals had always stood out to me. My life purpose gene key is number 22, grace. And so I created this portal of grace. And it was just the most beautiful experience creating this. I've never painted like this before. Every morning I would listen to Richard Rudd's Invocations. And while I worked, I would listen to the evocations, and I would call in the archangels, and I would call in the star beings to be with me as I created this painting. And it was a few months, 2 or 3 months, that I worked diligently, and it was just a process for me that I've never felt before. I felt like I was divinely guided the whole time. And I was getting close to being finished with the painting, and I got a hold of the woman. And I told her that I would love to come and have tea with her, bring the painting, and bring my husband and explain all the symbology. Because she really gave me free rein. She had no idea what I was doing. She didn't see it at all in the whole process. We didn't really talk about it. She just said, do your thing. So I got this, and I sent her that, and I got this response from her that just shocked me. She said, the only thing I require from you, and you alone, is that you deliver this painting to my home all wrapped up and ready to be transported, because I've decided I'm going to put it in one of my many other homes. So I worked on this for almost 3 months, and she didn't even want to see my painting. She didn't even care to see it. And I was just like, dagger in the heart. I mean, this was just this creation, and I knew it was powerful, and I knew it was meant to heal many. And so I cried and cried that night, and woke up the next morning, and I said, wait a minute, Hank, I don't have to give her the painting, do I? Because she hasn't paid me anything. And he's like, no, you don't have to give it to her. So I sent her a message and said, I just don't think this is the right painting for you. I understood it was meant to go in your healing space. And now that I understand it's going to go in one of your homes, I'd love to paint you something else that would maybe be better for you. And she didn't want me to paint anything else. And that was the end of the story. So I kept the painting. And I was very excited. And that's when we got the idea to start the 7 Sacred Seals group around the painting. And our first meeting was on January 1st. We had a group here. We had 22 people here. 22, which is the 22nd gene key. And I want to also say about that experience with her, what I realized was the shadow of the 22nd gene key of grace is dishonor. And I realized she was dishonoring me and she was dishonoring my work. And I stood up for grace. I didn't really realize it till later, but it was just kind of cool that shadow came up and I said, no. So from there, we started our 7 Sacred Seals group, and it's been really great.
Can I jump in before you start? Because I want to just acknowledge the way in which I'm connected to the two of you at this moment, because you posted, Kim, and I don't remember the exact date, but on Gene Keys Global, I would say it was in February, because I believe the deep dive retreat had begun, which is how Akushi and I met. So you posted this picture, and I remember that I'd never heard your name. I saw the picture. I saw it was the 7 Sacred Seals that I was already working on my own. And you were gracious, and I said, I want to know more. And you said, well, what do you want to know? And I said, everything. And she said, well, here's Hank's information, call us. And so I ultimately did, and then have been able to have the privilege, and it is a privilege, to come into your collective and to see how you're doing this, because I truly believe it's a model, one model, there are others, but a model, a beautiful model that can be taught to other teachers who want to take the original idea behind this painting, you know, and present this model in their own towns and locations in their own ways to the world. I mean, as healing centers, I mean, pockets of healing interconnected across the globe. And so what I really wanted to say, and I hope I haven't interrupted your flow, is that the way you described how the commissioning of this painting that you kept for the healing of the world or the many was a divine synchronicity, a divine appointment. You posting this on Gene Keys Global was, for me, a personal divine appointment, because as you both know, I run a nonprofit organization called the Ignite Your Light Coalition. And I am so interested, Hank, and I want you to talk about this later when there's time, your model of your collective vision of shared leadership, because that is ours too, but you're much further along this path than we are. So you could teach us a lot. But look, I'm going to stop talking. I'm just trying to acknowledge the two of you, the way that synchronicity works to give us the people that we need to do what it is we're here on the planet to do. And that's the same story with me meeting Akushi and now being a co-host on this show. I mean, these are just things that you couldn't have imagined would happen until they just happen. And you're paying enough attention to spirit and to the message to say, okay, I'm in. So bless you. And now you've got your show back.
Oh, thanks. So we have the exact same feeling, and we hold nothing but praise and gratitude and goodwill towards the woman who commissioned this painting, because that was divine guidance on her part. It was also divine guidance on her part not to put it to use in the way so it would come back to us. And we realize that, we see that, And we bow in a gratitude for her, to her every single day for putting us on the path that we're on. So we did start this 7 Sacred Seals Collective. And one of the reasons why we do stuff in a collective is that we don't know enough to be the leaders. And so what you do is, a lot of the work I do is called surfacing wisdom. It's surfacing your own wisdom, the collective wisdom, the wisdom of humanity. And there are ways to do that, but one of the most powerful ways to do that is truly operate in a collective where the wisdom of all is brought in. And so you don't have to know everything, which we are not experts on the 7 Sacred Seals. We are not experts on the gene keys. When we continue to work with and study that and learn more all the time, but we've learned that we can trust that surfacing wisdom process, the collective wisdom that comes in, and it works great. And it brings people to really step in because they feel it's included, they engage, they want to be a part of it, and the collective will is what carries you forward as well as the collective wisdom. So, and it's so much easier that way than thinking that you have to become a guru or, the expert on some particular area. You don't. So that's the model we use, and those are some of the hidden reasons for it. Plus, it's just a whole bunch more fun and meaningful and impactful. So I want to explain a few things to set context. So I wasn't a very spiritual person. I did drown when I was 14, in lifeguard training of all things. How many people are training to be a lifeguard and drown in the process? Only somebody who's really stupid. And I still graduated. I still got my lifeguard certificate and all that. But it was such a transformative experience for me because I grew up in a very strictly religious family, very narrow views of what the world was like. And my experience was outside of all of that I had ever heard. I didn't really know even how to put it into words. And so I kept it to myself. I didn't tell anybody about it for probably 30 years. But it did, in its own way, save my life. So as I got older, I got into this corporate career. I was an engineer. I studied computer science at Georgia Tech, MBA from Columbia, very much in the corporate, normal, all focused on rational stuff, I thought. And I got congestive heart failure, kind of at the peak of my career, which was a really, really good thing. I didn't know it at the time, but I left my job 10 years ahead of time because I wasn't going to live. My doctor told me I wasn't going to live. So of course I was interested, did research around the heart, got to understand the heart a lot better, and took and applied the little bit that I knew at that time to healing myself, and it worked. But then I didn't know what to do. I literally didn't know what to do with myself. So long story short, moved here to Central Oregon and had the most insane thing that ever happened to me in my life was that a guide started speaking to me. She came to me the first night. We built a very large, fancy dancy retreat center here in Central Oregon, about 8,000 square foot facility. And in the guise of a Native American grandmother. And she just told me her name was Grandmother Earth. And I hid my head under the pillow and told her to go away. And she came back, and I did it again. And she came back, and I did it again. Finally, on the 4th or 5th night, I gave up. And I said, "What is it you want me to know?" And she started talking to me. And she gave me a whole set of visions, which I could not make sense of. Some were very beatific, the world like a glowing world, a very loving world, a very peaceful world where people will live close to nature in a very simple way. And other of the visions were horrific. I mean, truly horrific visions of suffering and destruction, so I didn't understand them. And she finally told me at this one point, she said, there is a time coming called the time of choosing. And this time is a window in time when humanity makes a choice. And what that aggregate choice is at its, it doesn't mean like a majority, but an aggregate choice directly affects the rest of the lifetime of humanity and me. And so she called it the threefold path. And she said these visions are different visions of those three pathways. She said it starts in early 2012 and it ends in 2022, this time of choosing. And as I've later learned, the actual choice is very simple. Do you choose love and unity? Do you make your choices from that place? Or do you make your choices from fear and separation? And one leads you to success and one leads you to misery and suffering. And so we've been plugging along with that. And interestingly enough, we met in 2012. And so grandmother has taught me all the healing practices that I know up to a point. And then about 3 years ago, maybe almost 4 years ago, I had an experience where I met a second guide, and her name is Maya. So it's Maya and Gaia, and they're actually sister planet beings, which is pretty cool. And grandmother taught me about there's 4 realms, basically. There's the 4 elements without spirit. There's heart, body, mind, and soul. And so you are an aggregate of those, with spirit being the uniter and the navigator of those. So grandmother taught me about heart and body, and Maya taught me about mind and soul things. So when she stepped in, it dramatically expanded both my healing practice and my understanding of things. And she's been a consistent, constant guide to us since this whole process started. And we didn't understand when we started this group in January this year that it was the beginning of the great change. And this is something Richard Rudd talks about. It's the actual creation of a new species of human called Homo sanctus, living in a very different way in the world in a very different way. Some people call it ascension or awakening or enlightenment. You can give it any name you want, but it's not the way we live right now. It's living in unity and living in love, not in fear and separation. So when we started the 7 Sacred Seals group, things started to happen, and coincidentally with that. And we asked Maya what is going on, and her explanation is these 7 sacred seals are the things that initiate the great change. And they start with the 7th seal, and you go from 7 down to 1, and you go 1 back to 7. The journey down is on the way to basically deconstruct the way we live now. And when you start your way back up, it's reconstruct the way we live, but in a new way. So a lot of old structures that are built in shadow, in patriarchy, in woundedness, in fear, can't survive this experience because you cannot ascend with them in place. And so each of these 7 seals, when it's opened, and so the 7th seal opened in January, early, it's the seal of grace. And it embraces and contains all the others. And it brings in grace, and grace is suffering. So if you look at suffering in the right way, why is this happening for me, not to me, you'll find grace in that. There's always a gift, there's always a lesson, there's always a jewel, a treasure in it. And so that one opened, and it brought in the pandemic. Because the pandemic was illuminating, if you will, that we live in a way that's actually not healthy. It cannot continue in that way. And it was to bring people's attention to the fact that we are living in very separated lives, even though we feel like we're very connected. And I think it's done that for a lot of people. It's been very helpful for people. The 6th seal of truth opened in early June. And so it brought in the seeing of real truth about things, which brought in a lot of these kind of underlying biases and judgments, and like embedded racism, brought those into view, and people didn't like what they saw. So people deny it, or they accept it, or whatever they do. And then we have the seal of forgiveness, which is opening we think, in November or December. And so from what our guy says, it's going to bring in this wave of some financial collapse and destruction. So each of these events has global consequences, not so localized. And Maya said even she doesn't know what the rest of the seals bring in, because what they bring in is dependent on how is humanity reacting to what's happening now. Are you doing your inner work? Are you saying, what does this illuminate in me that I need to work on, that I need to clear, that I need to integrate, that I need to get more into love and unity on? And the more people that do that, this is that time of choosing us. It's steering us into that pathway, this 3rd way, which is what we're hoping comes to pass, where it becomes like heaven on earth. Heaven's not someplace you go to, it's someplace you bring in, right? You create for yourself here. So that's the journey that we're on. And we will hit the bottom of this around 2022. She actually is quite specific about that. It's November 22nd, 2022, 11/22/2022. And then we start this ascension process and rebuilding. And even Richard Rudd says that he thinks all this comes in around 2027, which would make sense. You're climbing back out of it for a 5-year period, completely rebuilding society and the way that we operate as humankind. But there's an interesting side story, if you don't mind me sharing, a bit even bigger picture than that. So I'm going to use the word God or source or creator, and they all mean the same to me. So Maya has shared a lot about the creation story with us. And this is the way she explains it. In the beginning, there was eternal mind. That's God, creator, source. And that mind was self-aware. It was all. It was the only thing that existed. That mind decided, God decided, to experience self. So it created what you might call fractals of self. So it takes this holy fire, this holy spark of eternal mind, and it creates individual, unique creations of that. And in some societies and cultures, they're called gods and goddesses. But they're also a part of you that is the unique part of you. So each of us as human beings actually exist at 3 different levels simultaneously. You have this holy spark, this holy fire, which is your unique expression of God. And it needs a vehicle to move around in if you want to move around in. So you have an actual construct called the soul. And the holy spark is in the soul. It's kind of like you're in your body, your holy fire is in the soul. And it occupies this place between your 3rd and 4th chakra, which is your 12th chakra. And it's called the Atman or the Hrit or the I am chakra. And in Sufism, it's called the most secret. And that is your actual point of consciousness. When you go into witness mode, like I'm witnessing myself doing something, that's the part that's watching you. It's not your mind. Then this soul construct of you wants to come and have embodied journeys. So it's kind of like your holy spark puts on a suit, and then you go rent a car, which is your body, and you drive it around until your lease expires, right? And then you have to get out of your car, and you have to go find another car if you want to. So we're here at 3 different levels at once. And the main drive we all carry is to evolve, because Source has this imperative to evolve. Source is not static. Source is ever evolving and changing. And left to its own devices, just experiencing itself, it doesn't present a lot of opportunities to evolve that way. So as each of these sparks, these fractals of holy source experience whatever they experience and learn and grow, and they evolve because they're all one, source evolves. So it's like, going to university and having 100 of you and taking every class at once. You graduate with every degree possible, right? But they're all you. So you'd be really smart, well-educated, and you could do a lot you normally couldn't do. So Source has created these universes for these souls, for these holy sparks to inhabit them. And there's many universes. Ours is not the only one. They're called the multiverse. In these universes, there is life, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the life like we have here, but there's life forms. There's lots of life forms in our own universe. In this particular universe, though, is quite different than other universes have been up to this point in time. In all those other universes, this understanding that we are all one has always been there, always been there. So people understood they are unique expressions, but they also understood we are one. And they felt that connection of oneness always with each other. So in other words, if I did something to you or for you, I did that to or for myself, right? Because you and I are just 2 expressions of the same oneness. In this universe, this concept came in, this idea came in, that perhaps evolution could be increased or ignited even more if this universe was created with this fundamental belief of separation. Because this universe is an intact being. We are like the cells of the cells of the cells of the universe, right? It is a conscious being. And so it has its own aspirations to evolve. It has its own path in life. It's a unique aggregated expression of God also. So this universe was created and born believing it's separate from God, which means we all do.
Yes,
We
I
all
call that original.
right. At the stories in the Bible, the original sin being cast out of the Garden of Eden,
Right.
these are all rooted in truth, in their own way, and a way of explaining it. So the challenge in this universe is much greater than in other universes, right? And it wasn't done to us with ill intention to make us all suffer more. But when you believe in separation, you automatically experience fear, and a lot more suffering comes in. It's suffering that we inflict upon each other, and we inflict on Gaia. And
Yes. Can I just jump in there?
Absolutely.
What I love about what you're doing, and don't let you lose your place, is that, and I know this was my experience in corporate America, where I too almost had to kill myself before I woke up to
Yeah.
the reality of what I was here to do all along. And all those skills I learned along the way were just meant to go into this new, more conscious version of me. But what you're describing, and I don't know where most of our audience is. I think you've got some really advanced people and maybe some relatively new people, but it's so important to do what you're doing, which is to show how large this universe is, that there's such a bigger picture than this 3D reality that we think is all there is. And therefore, if it's not working the way we want it, we like give up on life or something, as opposed to realizing that when the world ends as you know it, it's a gift.
It's
Like today, these challenges, it's a gift when properly understood, because you're now awakened. You have an opportunity to evolve into these multi-dimensional beings that are capable of receiving these gorgeous downloads like you two are receiving. Which reminds me, I'm going to say this question before I forget. You have an 8th chakra practice of soul communion that you talked about to help people connect to their guides.
Yes.
I'm really interested in that if you have a chance to talk about it. And if not on the show, maybe post that on Flowing with the Spiritual Cafe afterwards for people that are interested in seeing how they can participate more consciously in this evolutionary journey of hearing the messages that are coming in from spirit. Okay, so now I know you were giving us the new paradigm.
So thank you, Ani, and I will, and maybe you'll need to remind me. So we're in this universe that's built in a foundational way to believe in separation, and we're trying to evolve our way back into unity. First into the belief of unity, and then really experiencing that and embodying that. And one of the things I love about all the teachings that we received, they're not what I call mind candy. We're always taught practices to embody them, because you're in a body for a reason, not to live in your head, but to actually embody this life and all that you learn around this life. So there's always a way to bring this home, just like that practice with your chakras, right? So we're in this universe and we're trying to ascend, if you will, or whatever people think that is. And the first thing we have to do, and that's what this time of choosing is, stop choosing fear and separation. Start choosing love and unity, because choices made from fear and separation will never, ever take you home. They'll give you rapid and usually painful experiences to help you evolve very quickly, but continuing to choose those won't take you home. You can't get home from here that way. And one of the biggest lessons about that, I call it the University of Fear and Suffering, is when you eventually graduate from it, when you realize I can't get what I need in the school anymore. And then you enroll in the University of Love and Unity. And then there's a whole new set of experiences that come into that. And those are the ones that actually take you home. So I'm just going to bookmark that whole thing for a second. I want to talk about this word of ascension. And I'm sure some of your audience at least has read where, like, we live in 3D and we're trying to ascend to 5D, which is these, Maya calls them levels of this universe, parallels of this universe. She doesn't choose the word dimension because it can get confusing for people. So she has shown me that you have 12 chakras, and that for each of those chakras, there's a level in this universe. And we are in level 1, which is like the bottom floor of a 12-story apartment building. That's the way she explains this to me. And if you want to ascend, you need to either take the stairs or the elevator to get up to the 2nd floor or the 3rd floor, right? So her level of 3rd level is the same as 5D, which is 2 levels above 3, right? We have already been at 5D. We started this journey at 5D in the days of Atlantis, in the days of Lemuria, right? And so what happened there was we fell, another falling from grace story, right? But it wasn't happenstance, it was intentional. And her model of this is that, and I learned this in orbital mechanics because I studied that in school and when we were studying, ballistic rockets and all this stuff. There's this technique that you can use in space travel called a slingshot. And what it is you go in very close to a physical body like a planet. You come in and you use this slingshot to maneuver to throw you out going faster than you went in. It's kind of like a roller coaster, but instead of losing speed as you come out of the bottom, you actually gain speed. And so I was asking her, is there a greater context for the 7 sacred seals? Because I love what she shared with us. And there is a greater context for it. So when humanity started, however long ago, we'd actually made this ascent from 3D to 4D to 5D. But she said that evolution, and Richard Rugg talks about this too, it's not like a steady thing. It usually comes in steps up, but we plateaued at 5D. And in order to break through 5D, we are using what's called a slingshot maneuver. We descend, looks like we're losing ground, we're falling into dark shadows, we're falling into times, we're coming down, and then we're going to make that turn and we're going to slingshot back. We're not going to 5D, we're going to 6D, 7D, 8D. We've already been there. This evolution takes us beyond that, takes us through that, but the actual part of the maneuver that gives us that rapid acceleration is the 7 sacred seals. You go down from 7 to 1, and then you slingshot out of that rapidly, rebuilding, and that velocity you pick up takes you past 5D to 6D to 7D to 8D. And then maybe we have to repeat that. She just said the path of evolution has these curves in it, where we slingshot each time, and there are 12 levels. So the whole universe, is important to understand, the whole universe has never been above 5D. This universal being we live in. And the levels above 5D are the levels of non-duality. The duality only exists in the first 3 levels, like hate and love, fear and love, all these different things that we see these dichotomies of. They don't exist on the levels above, and we are not constructed as human beings to experience those levels. So Richard Rudd talks about Homo sanctus, and there's fundamental DNA changes coming, and they are coming. They're coming in now, shifting people into a way that their mind can grasp this, they have the senses to grasp this, that they can experience these levels. Because when I have tried to journey there myself, because she's shown me ways to go to higher levels of this, I can't make heads or tails out of what's going on because I don't have the senses to do that. I'm not constructed to function well in those levels. So the next 3 are the heart or emotional levels. And then the next 3, interesting, are the soul levels. So there's 3 for each of the 4 realms. And the last ones are called the eternal mind levels. And an interesting thing that she's just taught us recently is right now, in the lowest 3 levels we're in, there are 5 elements. Their universe and these 3 levels are constructed of those 5 elements: earth, fire, wind, and water, and spirit. But when you ascend above those, there are more elements needed to do that. So there are 3 elements coming in now to help us make this ascent, and they are sound, they are light, and they are love. They're not the experience of those. They're the actual elements that are used to weave and create a form and a structure for us all to live in.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. There are there are a lot of teachers that are not doing gene keys, but are doing what you're talking about, which is helping people become conscious directly of these higher dimensions and how to experience those higher frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the groups, the first global work I did, they were in Australia, but they were able to go into those higher dimensions and extract the fractal patterns, put them on mandalas. They would carry a frequency, they would have color, light, sound. And so all of this was coming from the primal light and sound fields.
Right.
And then you would work with a client to put the image up on the screen and then have them breathe that into the third eye and then down throughout the cellular body. So this information is being channeled to a lot of people that are doing work like what you two are doing, what we're all doing, you know, to make this approachable, you know, so that people aren't afraid to talk about this publicly, you know, and to share it with their friends and their close friends and their families so that we can be those change agents to facilitate this consciousness, you know. So I know what you're talking about, and it's gorgeous. And I wish I had a spirit guide as you do. And that's why I'm really interested in your 8th chakra practice. Okay, that's your reminder. Okay. Okay, I know I keep getting you off track. Can I ask you,
Tell me if I'm running on and on too much, okay?
Well, no, were you done with the model? Because I have a question.
Yeah, I'm close to done. So those are the 12 levels, and the literal way you access them is through your own chakras. So if you want to access the 5th or the 5th level, the 4th level, whatever level it is, you have to access through the chakras. And most traditional chakra systems talk about 7, and there are actually 12. So one of the other teachings of mine, this will lead into that 8th chakra practice, okay?
Okay.
Is there's a lot of dispute about, there are a fair number of people saying there's 12 chakras, 13 chakras, 14 chakras, and it doesn't really matter to me, but there are 12 that really count because they give you the access to these upper levels, these upper dimensional levels. And people argue about where they are. Are they below you? Are they above you? And they're using physical space as a reference for that. And that only exists that way in these lowest 3 levels of duality. So I don't care where they are. I don't know where they are. But what Maya has taught me is you have access points to them, like little portals in your own body. So like, if let's just say, for example, one teaching I read is your 9th chakra is out at the edge of the solar system. That's a long way to try to reach to do any work with it. And find it. So you have an access point, and the way they work is that you have your central energy column, and then your energy path goes in a spiral in towards the 12th from that point on. So it's just, maybe everybody can just try this. Just take your left hand or your right hand, reach underneath your left collarbone here, and just press and circle around, and you'll find a spot that's sore. You'll find a tender point on most people, especially if you're doing any kind of spiritual work. And that is the access point to your 8th chakra. You can work directly with your 8th chakra through that point. And it's like a portal to it. It's not really there, but it's there and not there at the same time. So this particular chakra is called soul communion. And the reason it exists is when you are not in human form and you want to communicate to another soul, how do you do that? Where's your mouth? Where's your ears? Where's your lips? Where's your tongue? You don't have them. So this is where you communicate with other souls, but it's far beyond what we do when we speak to each other verbally, non-verbally. It is complete, total communion with that person. It's directive. You're not receiving that from everybody. If you want to commune to a particular soul and they want to commune with you, you do that, but you know everything they are saying without any ambiguities at all, very clearly what they're feeling, what they're thinking, what they're seeing, what they're understanding. It's a very, very robust form of connecting to others, and Maya calls it communion. So you can commune with souls, like we could commune with each other right now, and we probably are, but you can also commune with souls that are not here, people that have passed, with spirit guides, with other beings. I commune directly with Gaia through this. That's my grandmother that speaks to me right here. And the information comes in and goes out, but your mind makes sense of it and it comes through you to you in whatever language you speak, whatever mode that means the most to you, whether it's visualization, whether you hear it, whether you feel it, whether you taste it, whether you touch it. But this is a very important chakra. And these chakras, by the way, for your personal ascension, have to be opened and fully before you can become what's called fully enlightened. The meaning behind that is all chakras are lit up and turned on. So this one is soul communion. And then symmetrically from that one, you have another one here on your right side. And if you can find your one there. So this one is called sacred creation. There's this interesting thing that happens for your 12 chakras. These upper 5, if you will, upper 4, not counting your holy fire one, are pretty dormant in this 3D dense realm. They operate ever increasing frequency as you go up your chakras. And the frequency of life energy on this particular level is not sufficient for these to switch on. It's like they don't get the right voltage. They're like a light that doesn't get the right voltage. You can turn them on here, but when you're here, you have these lower 7 that are functional, and these are basically mostly dormant, okay? When you go into soul space, a reverse thing happens. Your life energy, your soul is kept alive through source energy now, not through life energy given to you from a planet being like Gaia. So then your first, second, and third chakras drop offline because they're lowest frequency ones, and that's the wrong voltage for them. So you have these upper ones going in when you're just in soul form, and you have the lower ones going when you're in soul embodied form, but the 12 of them won't function together. You cannot switch on your lower ones because they need that life planet energy to switch on, that frequency. So when you're in this life is the only way, using specific practices, to switch these back on using source energy. Some people call it Kundalini energy. It's the only way you can get the upper ones on because your lower 7 ones are already on. What were you going to ask, honey?
I was going to ask you, when we ascend, and we're in our light bodies, how would you describe it in terms of these 12 chakras? How would you describe what has been activated when you've become a divine human?
They're all fully activated at once.
All of them. Okay.
Right, all of them. And once that happens, it's independent of whether you're in soul space now or you're in physical form. Once they're on, they're on. And that brings you fully everything that existed about you as a soul, everything that you're created for, the unique characteristics of your holy fire, your soul form, and if you're in a body form. So, but when you're here, the chakras that do creation for you are the second paired with the throat. But when you're in soul space, second chakra is offline. So the reason I'm telling you all this is the chakra that now couples with throat chakra to create in soul space, to co-create the life you want to live as a soul. We all have journeys and experiences and evolve as souls. We don't have to be in like a physical form to do that, but you have to be in physical form to get all 12 enlightened. That's one of the primary reasons why people are born over and over and over and over again, because this is the only way to come here and to do this kind of work, or another planet being wherever you are. So this one is sacred creation. And then if you move down here, you can find it. It's off center here, not as far out. If you probe there, you'll find a tender point. And sometimes it takes a little while to find it. And these 2 chakras, they're called freedom and grace. That's right out of the Gene Keys. And
55 and 22.
55 and 22. And so,
can I just say that this man's life purpose is 55, and my life purpose is 22.
I know, it's gorgeous.
We like
how
that.
the universe put you together.
so the lowest 9 chakras are all what are called functional chakras. They do something. They're like an organ of your soul body, right? like they're the liver or the heart or the spleen. These two chakras are not states of doing, they're states of being. So you live and you exist in a state of freedom when this one's fully activated, and you live and exist in that state of grace when this one's activated. And they're actually called the gateways to heaven, because heaven is the holy fire at your 12th. So I have writings on this. I'd be happy to share if people want more of it. But the one that we want to focus on right now is let's go all the way back to this 8th chakra of communion and find it again. And there are ways to turn this on. And this is a simple way. Normally, because they've been dormant for a while, you ever wake up and you have kind of like crust in your eyes and you have to wipe it out? So as we go to wake this chakra up, we need to clean it a little bit first, okay? So there's this principle in when you're doing energy work that if you do a counterclockwise motion, which would be like this, looking at me, that's clearing. And when you do clockwise, you're sending energy in, okay? And so the way you do this is through bringing this energy into your heart as you breathe in and sending it out your fingers. It's the whole foundation of the work I do. So the initial part of this is imagine drawing energy out of here by breathing it from your fingers into your heart and just breathing out and clearing it. You do counterclockwise circles, just several here, and you're imagining that you're just wiping this clean and you're pulling the energy out of it with your heart and just letting it go. So just breathe it from into your heart, release it, and you're wiping the sleepiness out of that chakra when you do that. And then you reverse the direction, and what you send in is this blue, it's deep blue sapphire soul water, which is something that awakens and begins to bring this chakra back to life. And you just send that in from breathe it into your heart, send it out your fingers directly into the chakra. And you can do like 5 breaths of that. And then as you do that, what you'll find is that it will do one or two things. It'll either get less tender or more tender. And I don't really understand why, one or the other. But if you pay conscious attention to this spot, slowly circling it lightly, and you ask a guide, your guides, if you already know who they are, to speak to you, or you ask for the universe to speak to you, and then be quiet about that as you do it, you'll start to hear things. Because you're keeping this open, like, oh, I've got my ears open. Now I can actually hear. I've opened my ears to other souls or to spirits or to God, right?
Yes.
So that's the practice.
Thank you.
And we can get into other times about how you use this here. It actually is called magic.
Wow.
Because if you use this one, literally, you can create loaves of fish and loaves of bread and fish. You can change water to wine. You can.
Okay, we're going to materialize objects, right?
So far, I've not been able to grow my hair back, but I'm working on that. Anyway.
Thank you for demonstrating that practice, because now it's going to be live on the replay so that people that maybe didn't fully get it the first time and are interested, like myself, can watch it over and over again and practice.
I would like to say one more thing about the 7 sacred seals.
Absolutely.
And if you think about this, source or God created this universe with this very specific challenge in it. A really difficult challenge, right? To climb out of fear and separation back into believing that we're one and in ascending from there. So there are a lot of people that feel like God has abandoned us. Look what's going on in this world. How can God allow or create a universe? So there must be no God, or God's abandoned us. This 7 sacred seals is the medicine, is the cure, is the gift from source, creator, God, to help us get back out of this creation in this universe. So we're not stuck in it anymore, because we've learned more than enough about what fear and separation bring us, the hardships that bring us, but we've evolved a lot. So our universe has evolved a lot. So it's good to understand it's not just you are awakening or humankind's awakening, Gaia is awakening and the universe is awakening. It's all happening at once. All happening at once. And if I can make one more point, which is kind of like one of the biggest does I've ever got. 2 weeks ago, I was talking with Maya, and we're very focused on helping Gaia and humankind. And she said, to me. She calls me by my soul name, Opeachy. She said, Opeachy, you realize that humans constitute far less than 1% of the life on Gaia, don't you? And I said, well, I haven't really thought about it. She said, humans are really like overblown in their importance. And she said, remember, all of Gaia is ascending. All of her, all life on Gaia is going to ascend into a non-duality realm where all that life has never been before. And humanity can stop that or help that, but all of Gaia has to ascend. So don't lose track of that. So there are things that need to be done to help the animals and the plants and the ocean life and all this, that, and our help for that is to get out of the way, stop traumatizing them, right? So they can ascend. But it was like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about it. We're like the flea on the dog, and the dog is going to ascend, right?
Yes.
And when the dog ascends, we get to go with it. So
We hope.
our job is to stop fighting the dog and helping the dog, right? So anyway, I just wanted to share that last part, and I think I'm done.
Well, okay. Kim, did you have anything else before I ask a few questions that you wanted to add after listening to Hank talk?
No, I think we did a good job, honey.
She made me do it.
Okay. You guys are absolutely delightful, and you've answered a lot of my questions. I want you to think, though, because as we get close to the end, it might be a good way to close. If there is a special message that you've been called to share with the people who are listening today, some special message from Gaia or Maya, or both. Maybe we could close with that before Akushi takes us out, and we still have another good 10 minutes that we can talk at least. So just be thinking about that, because I would certainly like to hear anything fresh that might be coming through right now.
I would. Could I add something after all? I thought of something.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
So when Hank was talking about how the rest of Gaia is so important, it's called the Devic kingdom. Everything besides humans is, and actually I think humans are included in that. But in our Council of Five, we have people on council who are focusing on certain parts. Like one of the women is a land healer, and she's just like, that's where she's focusing, sending all this healing to the land, to the rocks, to this, all of it. And then we have the plant. We have a woman who's like all about the plants and the trees, and that's her thing. And my joy and my gift and my passion is the animals. And I've created a portal, a physical portal on our land, which is for the healing of all the animals. And it's really been powerful. I slept in this portal on the solstice, and I called in all the wounded. That, you know, I went through the dogs, the cats, the farm animals, I mean, it goes on and on and on, all the atrocities that have been done to the animal kingdom, and the insects, and all of it. And there's 4 trees in this portal, and I was really connecting with them, and they were showing me that one of the things that this portal does is it's a creation portal, and that whatever I want to create for the future for animals, I can do that by just dreaming it and praying for it. And so I've really been thinking about that. And something came to me about the ancient animals, all the animals that have extinct, mostly at the hands of humans. And I've always kind of felt like they're not gone, they just went off planet to another planet. That's my own little idea. And so I'm inviting these ancient ones to come back on the new earth. We can create whatever we want. And so we live on a cliff, a beautiful canyon here. And my dream is to see pterodactyl flying by in the future.
I think I read that on a Facebook post. Wow.
So for me, it's all about magic. It's all about dreaming in this world that we really want to see. And that's every part of it. It's all of it. You know, it's being able to dive into an ocean and the ocean just holds you and speaks to you. It's walking in the forest and you can hear the trees and you know them and you feel them. It's all of, like, the future to me is so exciting. I can hardly stand it. Like, this isn't a scary time for me. This is like the most exciting time of my life, because I just keep dreaming what's going to happen. And all of us need to do that. We need to dream really big.
Yes.
Okay.
No, thank you for sharing that, because I want to read something in a minute from a spiritual astrologer that I follow, that has been talking about some of the things that you just said, and he said that we need to yes, it's the time of great change, and it's through suffering that we find grace. Okay, so, and experience grace. So that's going to happen. It's a given. And all of us have been through this in our own way. And so we understand there is something after that that's so much better than what it was before. We know that. It's a gift. Okay. But you haven't lost, Kim, your playfulness. And this astrologer that I work with calls it spiritual optimism. You know, and sometimes I can fall, I'll be honest, sometimes I can fall into the old worry habits, you know, a form of pessimism, you know, and that's totally old paradigm, you know, because we're messengers of light, you know, which means that we have to be a channel of that hope. And we have to be the ones that hold that vision that all of this has great meaning and beauty, you know, and that beautiful things will evolve through what we help birth on the planet, whether we get to see it or not, but we certainly get to enjoy ourselves along the way, you know. So, you know, and in the Sacred Seals Collective that I sometimes drop in on, you guys demonstrate that playfulness. So that's good to see it in a spiritual group. When you're talking about these heavy advanced topics, that it's, and Richard Runn does this too, it's not divorced from reality. If we're doing it right, we're embodying it, we're living it, and that laughter is a part of it, you know, and we've healed enough of the sorrow that we can laugh. You know, so I'm going to read something and then I'm going to pass it back to Akushi, because I'm sure she has some things I want to say. And I hope, Hank, you'll also maybe help us end with a message from Maya and or Gaia. But I just want to read some quotes. And I know, Akushi, you'll appreciate this. This is from the spiritual astrologer I follow. And his name is Robert Wilkinson. And so here's a quote. We're entering into an accelerated phase of our spiritual evolution as new groups, and this group right here is one of them, the four of us, as new groups mobilize to facilitate the great change. And then here's a quote directly from Robert. Those who are committed to joyfully materializing spirit will be lifted on the wings of angels and carried into the Aquarian age beginning in 2122. It's like there's nothing to fear. If we're doing the work, the universe that's descending as we open these seals and all these other practices you talked about will carry us to where we need to go. So all we need to do is get on the train. This is beautiful having you here. Thank you, and having you in our lives. So thank you.
About both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you, Arnie. Yes, I loved that quote, of course. Absolutely loved it.
That was for you.
And thank you, Kim and Hank Queen. There isn't a lot. I've made lots of notes and lots of hearts and lots of buzzers and it was just so well orchestrated between the two of you, and I've learnt a lot today. And I like to talk about synchronicities, and it's lovely, beautiful that Arnie invited you in. It's been the way we met was a synchronicity. The seven seals, the fact that we were both doing the seven seals, and then she invited you. The way that Arnie met you, she saw your artwork, and she thought, wow, I've got to get in touch with this woman. I've seen your artwork since. Today I did a reading for this. I thought, what just pulled the angels in, and I always pull a card, and the card I pulled was light, and I pulled that card 3 times. So I thought, okay, I'll just sit in the light and absorb the light from these beautiful beings. I love Gaia and Maya, and the earth guide and spirit guide. I love that. I love the different vibrations, frequencies, levels, steps, colors, chakras, and the higher, the fact that it's expanding more, and that we can leave this very clear message of leaving the fear and going into trust, going into love. I can't remember. I did write down exactly how you put it. However, yeah. We're all meeting, pulling in our tribes. I have in the human design, I have 55. For those who haven't studied Gene Keys or human design, you can always contact Arnie, myself, Hank, Kim. Come on this spiritual website, Flow with the Spiritual Cafe. Ask questions, and one of us will answer. One of us will answer or direct you somewhere with answers. What I wanted to say is I was going to come in and talk about the Gene Key 39, about provocation, liberation, and realize that really I don't need to, but it was really relevant to me because my human design channel in my South Node is 55. So I've been on that journey. So I feel connected to you here with that, and also with what's happening. And yet I have an open channel for the 39, which is provocation and liberation. And I've been really practicing that this couple of days, feeling it and responding from love. So instead of from the fear was and either doing what I can do is going to restriction, constriction, or even attack, with, impulsively, and I didn't. I thought, well, okay. And I felt so liberated from coming from love. So the fear is there a little bit. However, I went through it and I went in it and I came out and I felt liberated. So thank you for that. Thank you for jumping in. Thank you, Arnie, for those wonderful questions. Beautiful reading and helping the whole juicy conversation to flow. I hope you will come back and share more, because it sounds like you've got so much more to share. We had 20 plus people today, and some really lovely messages. So I'll let you look at those when you come into the cafe and see what messages. But some lovely guests, new ones, and our usual followers. And so we will put the replay out there. Just thank you. I love you, and if you would be wonderful if you'd lead us out with a blessing and a message from your guides. And with that, I will say thank you to everyone that's listening today and in the future. And every Wednesday we hold this Flow with the Spiritual Cafe. If you feel called to share your story and your light and your messages and expand our coalition, as they say in the States, expand our loving community, because together we're going to light up the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would like to close with something that Maya has said, but I want to do it embedded into a practice. And it's actually one of the most important and simplest practices you can ever learn. It's how to reconnect your heart and your mind into one functioning unit And I could go on and on about all the physical, mental, spiritual benefits of it, but it is essential in navigating these times. And you talked about that yourself, Kusha. You step into fear, but then you step through it into love. This anchors your mind in your heart, so it's much easier to stay in that space. So I'd just like everybody to close their eyes. And if you can, maybe put your hand in the center of your chest just to remind you. This practice is called heart coherence, but it is literally connecting heart into mind as one functioning organ again. This is the way it's supposed to be. So with that attention on your chest, I just ask you to focus there in a gentle way and begin breathing in and out through the center of your chest. Just imagine that your heart is pulling air in. As you breathe in, it expands and it opens. And then as you breathe out, it just gently contracts and releases the air in and out of there. This brings you into a state of coherence, which is all of a sudden your body goes into perfect physical balance, emotional balance, spiritual balance, mental balance. And in this place, what Maya has left us with is hold on to hope. So right now, I just want you to breathe hope into your heart. Actually breathe that emotion of hope, this spiritual excitement that comes from hope. And then love yourself and do your work. So breathe that love, just this element of love into your heart. And back out again. And then the last thing she says is see and support collective will. We are all in this together. So just imagine in that place of love that you're sending, you're breathing in love from all of humanity and sending it back to all of humanity. Thank you. It feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm staying here.
All right. Well, we appreciate both of you so much and those people that joined in, and I hope I didn't create more questions than answers. But